The silence of revelation on the United States is not the work of chance. It is a prophetic enigma. For centuries, the scriptures have pointed to empires by name: Babylon, Persia, Rome, Israel. The most powerful nation in history, the modern superpower, simply does not appear. And that's where the intriguing revelation comes in. There are 3 prophetic signs that can explain this mystery. And when we get to the third, it will be clear why every Christian needs to make a decision, and make it without delay. The first clue is in one of the most surprising passages of Revelation. John describes a woman chased by the dragon, but who is rescued by the wings of a great eagle. Is it possible that this eagle is a portrait of America? Notice what Revelation 12:14 says, "And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is sustained for a time and times and half a time." This woman represents Israel. The dragon is Satan, who tries to destroy her, but at the decisive moment, the great eagle appears, bringing deliverance. Was John describing a future American intervention on behalf of Israel during the tribulation? Or is this help totally supernatural, coming directly from God himself? Now think about recent history. In 1782, the young American nation chose the eagle as its national symbol. Coincidence or early sign of the divine plan? In 1948, President Truman was the first world leader to officially recognize the State of Israel just minutes after its declaration of independence. Since then, the alliance between the 2 countries has only deepened. And the detail is this: the relationship is not only diplomatic, but vital. Every year, the US allocates billions in military aid to Israel, more than to any other nation. And time again, in the UN Security Council, it is the American veto that prevents resolutions against the Jewish people. It would only be international politics, or the first beating of the wings of this prophetic eagle. Many have wondered, how does the book of Revelation speak of Israel, Babylon, the Antichrist, judgment and persecution? But does he not mention America, which is considered the greatest power of our time? The silence is so stark that it seems intentional. When John describes the visions, he speaks of empires, kings, tribulation, but nothing about a country that today dictates fashion, economics, and even wars. This vacuum opens space for reflection. Is it a coincidence or a prophetic clue? Imagine a person reading the prophecies 2,000 years ago. It made no sense to talk about an America that didn't even exist yet, but God already knew. The same God who showed the fall of Babylon and the persecution of the Antichrist also knew of the rise of the modern eagle. So why omit it? Perhaps because absence is the message. The silence of Revelation can be in itself a judgment. Think with me. The world looks to America as a benchmark of freedom, but what if that trust is a sandcastle? Great empires have already fallen without warning. Rome seemed eternal, but it collapsed. Babylon, which seemed indestructible, was destroyed in one night. So isn't the prophetic silence a warning that America may fall even before the Great Tribulation? This is the kind of question that bothers us, but that we cannot ignore. Now look at a practical example. Those who study geopolitics realize the fragility behind the apparent strength. Trillionaire internal debt, social divisions, political polarization, fragile alliances, even natural disasters are bringing America to its knees. Not to mention the growing distance from God. When faith becomes a cause for persecution and mockery, Revelation's silence on America may be showing a future in which it simply no longer has a voice. And here's the most uncomfortable point. Perhaps God's plan doesn't need America to fulfill prophecy. Israel is at the center, not Washington. The Bible teaches us that when the tribulation comes, history will not revolve around the eagle, but the chosen people and the fight against the Antichrist. That silence is like a blank page that screams, Preparing the heart for what will come in the next mystery. Is America, after all, hidden in the eagle symbol of Revelation 12? When John speaks in Revelation 12 about the woman, whom many understand as Israel, being led into the wilderness with the wings of a great eagle, the imagination of scholars and the curious skyrockets. Could it be that America, whose national symbol is precisely the eagle, is hidden in this passage? The coincidence is so intriguing that it seems like more than a detail. After all, prophecy rarely leaves gaps without purpose. The vision shows Israel in full persecution during the tribulation, protected by this symbol of strength. Now think, who in the current scenario would have the logistical, military and technological capacity to rescue and protect an entire nation under global attack? America, with its bases in the Middle East and its influence in Israel, seems to fit in. But is it that simple, or are we forcing the text? Many preachers use this parallel to say that the United States will play a crucial role in the end times. But there is a risk, confusing spiritual symbol with earthly power. The eagle in Scripture also represents God's own protection, speed, strength, vision that sees beyond. It is possible that John was not speaking of American fighter jets, but of God's own arm guarding Israel. Still, the association with America continues to echo. Do you want a practical example of how to think about this? Look at how today Israel depends largely on the alliance with America to maintain its security. Armaments, technology, intelligence, cooperation. All of this is already part of everyday life. Those who look only at the present see an almost perfect fit. But anyone who looks at the prophecy realizes that if that connection fails, the promise is still fulfilled, because the eagle is ultimately God. And here comes a detail that stirs the imagination. If America really is that eagle, it would imply that its fate is directly linked to that of Israel. But if it is not, silence weighs even more heavily on the greatest power on earth. In either case, the question remains, if the eagle is not America, then is the United States the prophetic Babylon of Revelation 17 and 18? Revelation 17 and 18 describe the fall of Babylon the Great, an empire marked by wealth, luxury, and spiritual corruption. Many scholars see it as a portrait of ancient Rome, others believe it to be a global system. But what if, in practice, the description fits? Modern America like a glove? A nation that dictates fashion, exports culture, and influences economies in all corners of the planet. Think of the symbol of the golden cup in the hands of Babylon, which intoxicates the nations with its practices. Doesn't it sound familiar? The American entertainment industry, for example, has already shaped behaviors around the world. Series, music, movies, everything becomes a reference, even when it promotes values far from God. It is as if Babylon were alive, using the cell phone screen to spread what was once just a prophecy. Another detail, Babylon the Great is called a center of trade, where the kings of the earth mourn their fall. Now imagine an economic collapse in the United States. Banks failing, stock, markets falling, entire nations dragged into chaos. We have already seen smaller crises, such as in 2008, shake the planet. What about a total drop? This prophetic echo does not seem as far away as we would like. In practice, the American lifestyle is the dream of millions. But along with this package comes secularization, the trivialization of the faith, and even persecution of Christian values. Many see in this the essence of Babylon, an empire that conquers not with swords, but with ideologies. It is the soft, a power that seduces but also enslaves. The apocalypse shows that this seduction has an expiration date. And here's the most unsettling point. If America is really this modern-day Babylon, then her judgment is already written. The apocalypse leaves no doubt about the fate of this city empire. The question is, are we seeing only the first signs of collapse? In the next point, we'll dive into an even more intriguing theory. What if America isn't Babylon, but rather the last limiter before the rise of the Antichrist? Few people stop to think about it, but what if America is not the eagle of Revelation 12, nor the Babylon of Revelation 17 and 18? What if her role is even more subtle, but just as crucial? There are those who argue that the United States functions today as a kind of limiter, an obstacle that still holds back the full manifestation of the Antichrist. It sounds bold, but just look at the political and military power that this nation exerts over the world. In practice, while America remains standing, strategic alliances continue to protect Israel and put the brakes on global projects of unification, contrary to God. Think of the UN, NATO, the G7. In almost all of this, the American voice is decisive. Now imagine this power being removed from the scene. What would prevent the rapid rise of a new world order, as described in Revelation? During the tribulation, the silence of prophecy begins to sound like a warning. It's like a chess game. America is the piece that, even though it's not the king, stops the opponent's advance. But pieces can fall suddenly. And if that limiter collapses from within, whether through polarization, financial collapse, or divine judgment, the space is free for the Antichrist to emerge. This is the uncomfortable logic that many avoid discussing. After all, no one likes to think that the land of the free can be just. A tentative chapter in history. Want a practical example? Look at the mounting pressure against Christian values in the US. The country that was once a reference in religious freedom now sees veiled persecution against churches and leaders who refuse to bend their principles. This reveals internal cracks. And as we've learned from other empires, small cracks are often the harbinger of historic downfalls. Rome also collapsed more by internal corruption than by the force of enemies. And here's the burning question. If America is indeed the limiter, how much time is left before that break is removed? Revelation shows us that tribulation will come, and nothing will stop it. So perhaps the absence of the US in the prophecies is precisely because, at the decisive moment, it will no longer have any role at all. Which naturally leads us to wonder, will America fall before the final tribulation? This is the question that keeps many scholars up at night. Will America fall before the tribulation described in Revelation? Silence about it can mean just that. After all, if the United States were protagonists in the prophetic scenario, John would have mentioned its presence. But what we see is a vacuum, a space that may indicate a total absence of relevance when the Antichrist takes the stage. Some signs are already accumulating, like dominoes about to topple over. Unpayable debt, political polarization that divides entire families, racial tensions, migration crises, and a society increasingly distant from the Christian faith. All of this sounds like a harbinger of judgment. It is as if America is repeating the path of ancient empires, strong on the outside, corroded on the inside, and it is not just a political or economic issue. The spiritual factor weighs even more. When a country begins to normalize what God condemns, it opens the door to serious consequences. Just look at Babylon or Sodom, cultural powerhouses that collapsed in moments. It's possible that America is heading for the same fate, where the crash happens so quickly that the world will barely have time to react. A practical example, in 2001, the attack on the Twin Towers showed how even the center of financial power can be reached in a few hours. This was just a sample of what a larger collapse could represent. Now imagine something on a global scale. The fall of Wall Street, digital blackouts, cyber attacks, or even natural catastrophes. Any of these scenarios could render the US irrelevant in a matter of days. And here's the key point. If America falls before the final tribulation, who will protect Israel? Revelation shows that God's people will face unprecedented persecution, and the absence of the world's greatest power may be precisely the opening to this scenario. The next question, then, is inevitable. Will the rescue of Israel described in Revelation 12:14 be linked to the U.S. military? Revelation 12:14 speaks of Israel being led into the wilderness with wings of a great eagle, protected during the time of the tribulation. Some interpret this directly. It would be the American military, with its impressive logistics, modern aircraft, and bases scattered throughout the Middle East. It is a reading that fascinates many scholars because it connects prophecy with a power that we already know well. Today, the United States has a significant military presence near Israel, with strategic alliances that ensure immediate support in the event of war. It's not hard to imagine planes and helicopters evacuating civilians to desert shelters, perhaps even in Petra, a historic site in Jordan that many believe to be the prophetic hideout. The scene sounds almost cinematic, but also realistic, considering the current scenario. However, caution is needed. Reducing prophecy to human means alone may be a mistake. After all, the eagle also symbolizes God's supernatural care. Even if the American military participated, the invisible hand would be his, guiding every detail. It is as if the prophecy leaves room for both possibilities, human action and divine intervention working side by side. Think of a practical example. In recent wars, such as in Iraq and Afghanistan, we have seen the US mount large-scale evacuation operations. Images of planes full of refugees went around the world. Now, project this to Israel in the context of Revelation. The logistics already exist, the historical too, but the prophetic meaning transcends any military manual. And here's the dilemma that nags. If the US military is part of that rescue, it means America will still have relevance in the tribulation. But if they are not, prophecy shows that God does not need any superpower to save his people. This opens up an even more provocative question. Is America not the protector, but rather the new Tower of Babel of our times? The narrative of the Tower of Babel in Genesis shows a unified people trying to reach heaven in their own strength. It was the ultimate symbol of human pride, and so God intervened. Now, looking at modern America, it's not hard to draw parallels. Skyscrapers that touch the clouds, rockets that explore space, technology that defies natural limits. Are we facing a new Babel? Revelation speaks of systems rising up against God, and America, with its global influence, may be fulfilling this role without realizing it. It is the nation that exports culture, science, economics, and ideologies, many of them taking hearts away from the Creator. Like the old tower, the project looks glorious to human eyes, but it carries seeds of perdition. It is a from heaven to perdition disguised as progress. See practical examples: the space race, artificial intelligence, biotechnology. All of these are amazing feats, but when used to replace God, they become bricks in a new tower. The prophecy already warned, every system that tries to rise without the Lord ends in confusion and judgment. Ancient Babel was interrupted by the multiplication of languages. Modern can be interrupted by crises, breakdowns, and even spiritual persecution. It is not a matter of condemning advances, but of questioning intentions. America can be seen as pioneering, but also as arrogant in positioning itself as the indispensable nation. It is a tower mentality, to rise above others, to touch the heavens, and to define good and evil without consulting the Creator. This spirit is what John describes in his visions, the same one that feeds the prophetic Babylon of Revelation. And here arises the question that does not want to be silenced. If America is the new Tower of Babel, are we already experiencing the first signs of judgment? Devastating fires, political polarization, and financial collapses sound like echoes of divine intervention. But are these events just historical accidents, or are they already part of the beginning of judgment on modern Babylon? When John described in Revelation 18 the fall of Babylon the Great, he used strong imagery: smoke rising, merchants weeping, ships standing still. Now, look at the recent signs: fires ravaging American cities, financial crises rocking the global economy, political polarization that divides even families. It doesn't seem like just a coincidence. For many, it is as if the trial has already taken its first steps. America has always been seen as a land of freedom. But what happens when that freedom turns into debauchery? God's judgment in biblical history rarely comes all at once. It comes in waves, as a harbinger to call to repentance. Natural disasters, social breakdowns, veiled persecution of the faith, all of these can be understood as trumpets announcing something greater. Think of a practical example: the 2008 financial crisis. A banking collapse in New York spread in a matter of days to the entire planet. Millions lost jobs, entire families were left homeless. If a single event has shaken so much, imagine an even greater judgment, which is not only economic but spiritual. Revelation describes exactly this scenario: global mourning for the fall of the great city. Another detail draws attention: the way American entertainment intoxicates nations, selling narratives that normalize sin and ridicule faith. This is a kind of silent judgment, because people consume without realizing that they are being molded. Thus, the apocalypse ceases to be just a distant vision and becomes a mirror that reflects the current reality. And here's the question: if these signs are already part of the judgment on modern Babylon, what will come next? The apocalypse shows that after judgment comes open persecution against the faithful, even in places once considered refugees. Is even the United States on its way to becoming the scene of the final persecution? For a long time, the United States was seen as the bulwark of religious freedom. Churches flourished, missionaries were sent, and the Bible was at the center of public life. But something has changed. In recent years, a hostile climate has grown against those who hold biblical values. What was once respected is now ridiculed. And this begs the question: is America becoming the scene of the persecution prophesied in Revelation? John describes a time when the Antichrist will impose his mark and persecute those who keep the faith. Perhaps many expected this to occur only in countries without a Christian tradition. But the irony is that, in the heart of America, signs are beginning to appear. Christians prosecuted for not bowing to ideologies, teachers punished for professing faith, companies pressured to abandon biblical principles. The scenario fits more than we would like to admit. A practical example helps to visualize: when a Christian confectioner was taken to court for refusing to participate in something against her conscience, the case went around the world. It wasn't just about cake, it was about freedom of faith. Multiply that by thousands of situations, and the picture becomes clear. Persecution does not begin with mass arrests, but with small cultural concessions. Revelation speaks of a time when confessing Christ will be costly. In the US, this reality may be closer than many imagine. It is enough to observe how faith went from central to marginal in a few decades. What was the pride of America is now seen as an obstacle to progress. This is exactly how the persecution begins: silent, disguised as modernity, but lethal to true faith. And here is the disturbing point: if even the United States, once a beacon of faith, becomes a scene of persecution, what is left for the Christian? Revelation shows us that tribulation will spare no one. Therefore, the next reflections are inevitable. After all, what will be the final destiny of America in the face of prophecy? We have reached the point where the pieces come together. Some see America as the eagle of Revelation 12, others as the Babylon of Revelation 17 and 18, and still others believe that it is only the restraint that slows down the rise of the Antichrist. Three different theories, but all pointing to the same fate. America will not have the central role that many imagine when the tribulation reaches its peak. Each interpretation has its weight. If it is the eagle, its mission will be temporary, to protect Israel until God intervenes directly. If it is Babylon, its fate is already mapped out: rapid fall, inevitable judgment. And if it is the limiter, it means that when America collapses, the way will be clear for the global domination of the Antichrist. In any scenario, the prophecy indicates that the current power will not be eternal. Practical examples help us to reflect. Rome believed it would last forever, but it fell. The Soviet Union seemed invincible, but it collapsed in a matter of years. Empires come and go, but Revelation shows that in the end, only the kingdom of God remains. America may be the next giant to kneel before divine judgment, just like all the others who have tried to occupy the center of history. And here's the most important detail. None of these theories change the fact that Israel is at the center of the prophecy. The stage of the end times will not be Hollywood nor Washington, but Jerusalem. It is there that the promises will be fulfilled. It is there that the decisive battles will take place. America may even appear at a glance, but never as a protagonist. This completely changes the way of reading current signals. Therefore, the true invitation is for every Christian to stop looking only at the United States and turn his eyes to the Word. Revelation was not written to satisfy geopolitical curiosity, but to prepare the heart. And now, after exploring the three theories about America's fate, the biggest challenge arises. If biblical silence is no accident, is it the darkest sign of prophecy? After delving into so many possibilities about the silence of Revelation in relation to America, the big question that remains is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you just file it as a curiosity or allow it to transform your way of seeing the world? After all, if even the greatest power can disappear from the prophetic scene, let alone we, mere mortals, if we are not grounded in God. What if this silence is precisely a wake-up call? Think, if America can be the eagle, the Babylon or the limiter, in all cases her fate is temporary, but the promise of Christ is eternal. So the question is, have you been preparing to live this prophetic reality, or have you been trusting in human systems that can fall at any moment? Perhaps this reflection is uncomfortable, but necessary. True faith is not built on comfort, but on the urgency of understanding the signs. And the signs are there: tribulation, persecution, judgment. Everything indicates that the prophetic clock is ticking. What will define his life is not the fall of America, but the steadfastness of his faith in the face of the Antichrist and world chaos. Now I ask you, are you ready to choose the right side before it's too late? Are you willing to review your priorities, strengthen your faith, and align yourself with the word that does not fail? This decision is not about politics. It is about eternity. The silence of Revelation over America is just the backdrop for a choice that is wholly yours. So, if this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This way you will continue to learn, reflect, and prepare to discern the signs of prophecy. Time is short, and each new video can be another key to awakening your spirit.